At 6:18. The first item on the agenda is a public comment. Public comment that is made on an item topic that is not included in the published final agenda will only be heard by the board. No formal action, discussion, deliberation, or comments will be made by the board. Each person providing public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. Don't see anybody here to provide public comment. Going to move to item 3A. To discuss and consider action to approve the October 22nd, 2025 meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to?
I move that we approve the item 3A minutes of October 22, 2025.
Great.
Support for that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Let's move to item 3B, presentation regarding the overview of the Tirz.
Board of Directors. For those of you that don't know me, Nina Megan with Haas Hill and Associates, and myself along with the city helping administer this reinvestment center. It's good to see everybody again.
What's the name of the firm?
Haas Hill and Associates.
Hogs Hill?
Yes.
Okay.
H-A-W-S. And I'm going to apologize for the raspy voice. A week of no humidity in Houston and beautiful 70s meant a lot of outside time, and I'm paying the price now with allergies. So forgive me for that, but I know it's been a couple of years since we've done this, where we've kind of done a review of, quick Tirz 101. I know we have some new board members, so I'll try not to go into all the details and bore everybody again, but I just thought we'd give a quick overview again, what we're doing here, its purpose, and give a little bit of history of where we started in Pflugerville and where we are today. So just real quick, I think everybody pretty much knows what a tax increment reinvestment zone is, governed by Chapter 311 of the Texas Tax Code. It's a public financing tool, and I would say a great economic development tool, with the idea of creating investment in underdeveloped and underutilized areas, with the but-for arguments in mind. And it's all about public infrastructure and financing of that public infrastructure, and really intended to support projects that would not occur but for the reinvestment zone. A lot of benefits of the Tirz. I could go all day on this and discuss so many. I personally like it because it's a very flexible tool and really can be utilized to meet many of the different cities' goals and objectives. It is an implementation tool. I always say that it's really there to serve the city and what it's trying to accomplish. It allows for funding of public infrastructure in advance that it might otherwise occur. It allows for partnerships and leveraging of other taxing entities. It also has, again, governed by a Tirz board, you can do specific projects, and it has an end date. It's not forever, and it's also not a new tax. I think there's sometimes that misconception. It is not a new tax on property owners. But a lot of different benefits. Again, personally, I like the flexibility and that this can evolve, and you'll see within this reinvestment zone as well as it can evolve as priorities change, as goals change, as what the city's needs change. It can really evolve with it to help as an implementation tool. Okay, eligible items to be funded by Tirz. I always say think public, water, sewer, drainage, public parks, public facilities, as you all know. Things that are not, or things behind like a gated community, private streets, private utilities. I always get that question, are gas lines? Well, only if the city utilizes it. Not every city in Texas owns their own gas lines. Some do, and that is eligible, but just think public. Soft costs associated with those projects as well, like planning, engineering, legal, things like that associated, as well as administration costs are all eligible costs. We also do allow 380 grants and loans. That is something that is allowed in the state statute, and it is something that we do have in Pflugerville's project plan and finance plans, so if they so choose to do it. But usually you have to create a program and usually city council approval.
What's a 380 grant?
So that's, okay, so usually when we think Tirz, we think public infrastructure. There are cases when you can use Tirz dollars, and the simplest way for me to explain this is like downtown's historic hotel where there's not enough public infrastructure for us to reimburse. Sometimes we'll enter into cities, we'll do a Chapter 380 agreement where the increment off of that site, they can give back through a 380 agreement that's not used for public infrastructure because there was not enough roadway, water, sewer, drainage. So they would just give it back to them like a grant of funds, like you do with the Chapter 380 agreement. And you would follow those same general rules, but you can utilize Tirz dollars to do so. You can utilize it in a bunch of other cases. That's always just the most simplest way to explain a good example of how cities have used it. Project funding. So there's a number of different ways that you can fund projects in a reinvestment zone. And, Pflugerville, when we started, it was a developer initiated Tirz. So one way is developer advance funds for the projects, and you're reimbursed over time, or you can issue bonds. Other Tirzes, as revenue increases over time, because when you start, there is no revenue, so you always need that catalyst. Either the city's putting in those initial funds to be reimbursed, or typically a developer. But as those funds increase, you can do projects on your own. It pay as you go on projects like that, or you can issue bonds. You can also leverage those funds, which we always highly recommend, with other taxing entities or grants or partnerships. So there's a number of different ways, again, that flexibility on how you utilize those funds, whether it is through reimbursement or whether it is through the Tirz board alongside with the city actually engaging and implementing projects themselves. So again, that flexibility. So again, this kind of goes back to Tirzes are used for so many different purposes. There's over 400 reinvestment zones throughout Texas. We work throughout Texas in our worker communities, small, large, for all different purposes. They've utilized this tool a lot. Some of them, it's got an affordable housing focus, and that is their focus. Others, it is more parks and recreation and redevelopment of older areas that are just underutilized properties, older downtowns, older corridors. And I've worked in some rural areas where it is about, there is no infrastructure out there. It is greenfield, and they cannot get development without putting in some of that basic infrastructure. Other communities, it's about both. Affordable housing, I know, is a big one for a lot of communities because that is allowed in the state statute and has more flexibility on how you utilize those dollars. Annexation is a big one. We created a reinvestment zone for the city of Minnesota, and 70% of the reinvestment zone is in the ETJ. So they're not realizing those tax revenues now, but what they're utilizing that as a tool to encourage developers to annex into the city as a condition for getting reimbursement. Because really, cities can't really annex anymore. So again, different purposes. Some communities utilize it for a sole purpose, others do it for multiple, and that can change over time. A lot of these reinvestment zones are created for 30 years, and those, how you utilize it is really, I want to emphasize, it's really about implementing the plans, the projects, the ideas in place. And like for Florida, you have a comprehensive in place. You have a downtown plan or east downtown. So this is the tool that can really help you implement that. One thing I do want to mention about types of projects, just because a project is in or eligible, is in the statute, does not mean you have to fund it. So that is something I like to make clear, that even just because it is or it comes to you, just because it's legally allowed, does not mean that it is a project that you have to fund or reimburse for. So a little history on this Tirz. For those who don't know, you can go to the next slide. Tirz 1 was created in 2010, and it was created for the Falcon Point subdivision. And that was a developer-initiated Tirz where they were going to put in the infrastructure and get reimbursed over time from the increment that they created off their development. And Emily, you can jump in anytime that I get these facts wrong, because I was not here in 2010, but I know that was during the downturn. And so this Tirz was very successful, and that was one of the reasons that it was created for this master plan community that had residential, multifamily, and commercial. And during that downturn, this was sort of that impetus and incentive to make that development occur. And as you all see, it is very successful. I think every single project has been completed and funded. Bonds were issued to reimburse the developer, but that was a developer created Tirz focused on that development. In 2018, and that is when I came in, we expanded that zone to include the Pecan District. That was also a developer created or initiated expansion, and was for a very specific project with the developer agreement. Then later on in 2022, we started actually having conversations in 21, looking at the Tirz for a different purpose, not so much for specific development, but how could the Tirz meet some of the other goals and objectives of the community in terms of redeveloping underutilized properties along the Pecan corridor, as well as how could we support development in the 45 area where there was no infrastructure in place to support development. So we looked at it a little different. There was not a specific development in place. So utilizing the tool, same premise, but different purposes and a different vision. So in 2022, we expanded to include those two areas. So you can kind of see on that map, we've got it's one reinvestment zone, really is divided into 4 distinct areas with, I think, we've got 3 different base years. So I think everybody does understand that, but I think when you're in create, you've got a base year, and what goes into the Tirz fund is revenues off over the increase of that base year. And so you've got 3 different base years, but 4 different areas within your reinvestment zone. So quick overview on financials. I'm not going to steal Tracy's thunder in the next item, but I just wanted to show how your reinvestment zone over the last, since 2010, has grown. A lot of that growth, as you can see, is, from 2 million to over 950 million right now, and that's captured appraised value. So that is value above the base year in all the different areas. And so it's grown. A lot of that growth is in the Falcon Point, the original zone, obviously, because that was created in 2010 and is built out, or fully built out. So if you go to the next slide, obviously growth in captured appraised value means growth in revenue. So you can see your revenues were $12,000 a year when they started to about $4.8 million in fiscal year 25. And again, a lot of those revenues are coming from the original zone. This is just a quick snapshot that I did. I know Tracy will go a little more into this, but how the revenues have been spent, and you can see a lot of that was reimbursements to developers, because that really was the primary use of this reinvestment zone for both Falcon Point and the Pecan District. But then you can also see there was debt services. I mentioned there was debt issued on this zone to reimburse the developer for the Falcon Point. And then you've got service payments for single family and multifamily. For those of you that don't know, there is from a dollar amount that goes back to the city, sort of for services like police, fire, for every residential unit that is within the Tirz. And then you've just got administration fees. So one of the things we did in 2023, after the zone was expanded, was develop a policy for the reinvestment zone. And one of the reasons for this is as your Tirz grows and as time goes on, uses of those funds change and needs of those funds change. And I think as staff, we all sat down and really wanted to guide how those dollars were spent and what was the best use of those dollars. Because really, as I said, it's broad and it can be spent on a number of different projects, but what was really the best use when you have a limited pool of funds? What projects should be eligible? And in particular, when we're coming to reimbursing developers, what makes the most sense and what is the best interest of meeting the community's needs? So we developed a policy. Policy was not meant to be regulatory. It is really meant to be a guide for you as the Tirz board, as staff and council in making good decisions. Understanding that there is always some flexibility, every project is unique and you've got to look at it, but this at least sets some parameters to look at it based on the vision, the goals, the plans that this city has worked so hard to put together and in place. How could we best utilize this tool to achieve those plans and really structure what made the most sense? So we put together a policy, worked with staff over months over that. And this is just kind of gives you an overview of, it was broken down into categories. We talked about the administrative process, general conditions, development standards, and then we broke it down into categories of mobility, parks, downtown revitalization, and actually some of the criteria in that development agreement. And a full copy of that you can get from staff, but I'm just going to hit some of the quick highlights of what was in that policy. So one of the big things, obviously, we wanted to make sure your project was in line with the project plan and finance plan. We also wanted to make sure that it was in line with what the city was trying to achieve in terms of goals, in terms of land use, in terms of the type of development and quality of development, and it was in their vision. Revenues, any reimbursement as it related to a developer would be based on the revenues that they generated for their development. So each account basically was not coming from everywhere else. And then it was on the developer to advance funds. It was really not going to be the city or the Tirz advancing funding any of the infrastructure improvements. So those were some of the key elements to kind of set the baseline, which also gives a good baseline for developers coming in and asking for a reimbursement that they know where sort of the ground rules are. Development standards and uses, I always say this, one of the greatest, great use of the Tirz while you are doing a reimbursement agreement to help support an underutilized or undeveloped area. You can put conditions in that development agreement as to what the quality of that development looks like. I know that we're so hampered nowadays with the state legislature, we can't do and control a whole lot in terms of development, but when you are doing a reimbursement, I always like to remind people that you can put some of those conditions in there, and that's important to know because you're giving them money back. You can also say that they can exceed city standards on certain things and utilize that as an opportunity to do so. And so we see that pretty often in reimbursement agreements. So that was something that we talked about and is very important, is to, make sure that they exceed, not just meet city standards, and also make sure that their character of what was being developed was in line with the plans, including the comprehensive plan. In terms of mobility and infrastructure, regional, putting in any regional improvements was something that would be very eligible for reimbursement. Going above and beyond, again, on some of the streetscape or amenitized regional detention. But what was also important here is while we do that and it looks great, there had to be a maintenance plan, and they were taking care of that, because otherwise that falls upon the city. And sometimes is not necessarily financially the best thing. So while we want some of those things, it was also in that policy to have a mechanism for maintenance for those items. Parks, trails, open space, again, that's always something exceeding the minimum standards. And again, making sure that there's private maintenance for anything that they did do that exceeded those standards. But again, I think the key point here is all great things. Meeting the goals of what the city would like to achieve in terms of parks and recreation facilities. But if they were already going to do it, or already have to do it, why kind of give them reimbursement or incentive or allow that to be an eligible project? It was really to do something where they exceeded those standards. And that was really the high-level summaries, but I'm open to answering any questions.
Yes.
Yes.
Please. What is the end date of this Tirz?
It has 2 end dates, and I think it's 2044 and 2054. So the Pecan District has a longer end date, and everybody else.
Because there's some bonds that go to
I should have
53.
looked that one up. I've got so many in my head because I did 3, but I know the Pecan District has a much longer, and I'm almost certain that was 2054, and the other one is in the 20.
Because there's a 2053, I believe, obligation
Yes.
that's
And
outstanding,
that
okay?
Pecan District was the only one that, per the development agreement, had an extended life.
Okay.
Everybody else.
The first number of years was 7 million was put out in funding, and then it jumped in 2022
So
to 54 million currently.
yes, from the historical.
What
It's the-
accounts for that? What accounts for that jump?
So I think it was a gradual jump, but it is the build out of the development. So when it's coming, you just got this
Okay.
natural growth.
So it's Falcon Point.
Yes.
Okay.
it's got the point. So those slides, by the way, show all 4 together, and if we do have numbers where it's broken down for each one, but it's Falcon Point.
Isn't a piece of what we're looking at in various ways also connected with the new city hall, or am I wrong about
That's
that?
in there as well.
Okay.
So that is in the last annexation we did along with the con. You can probably go back to, that now. Let's go back, but yes, that is included in there. When we did 45 and the pecan corridor annexation, that piece of property was included. Yes, the pecan corridor in blue.
Right, okay.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
and that was done in 2022. So
Okay. The current asset value that you've reflecting of 953 million, there was a 50% increase year over year in that I saw. Any idea where it's going now? Because my understanding of the real estate market in the area is that those numbers are going down, not up. Do we have any idea what?
So we'd have to break that down because that's all of it all together. But your majority of your growth is in Falcon Point.
No, I understand, but I'm saying the Falcon Point, the houses in Falcon Point in the last year,
Yeah, the whole.
going down in value.
Is that
So
tax
we don't
base?
have, that's just taxable value, yeah,
Yes.
yes.
We're just trying to see,
That's just- And that's just the captured, yes.
as a finance guy, I'd worry about sometimes of having that kind of dip and then being caught.
Yes. So this is where and yes, great point, but, and I think churches in general, you do get those dips. And but you
As long as they're not too big.
Exactly.
Right.
And I'll say, as long as you haven't overly pledged your bonds and things like that.
Right.
And that's why you have coverage ratios and all
Right.
of that. you account for those
Right.
dips, because that is normal when you're looking at a 30-year, it's never going
Right.
to have dips.
So you're looking at the DSCR and all of that
Mhm.
stuff? Okay.
Yeah, so anytime you issue bonds and things like that, that's why we'll never let you.
Okay. Are you guys a bond firm or,
I am not, but I'm a finance, so we do a lot.
so the firm is not a law firm or an accounting firm, it's a financial
We're an
firm?
economic development.
Okay, okay. I just trying to get an idea what the,
And that's taxable value, right? So you got to, so what evens that out would be the homestead exemptions and the 10% cap every year. So the tax base probably shouldn't decrease really, unless you got rentals, a lot of rentals in there.
Sometimes it does.
It'll go down
Over-
some,
Over
but-
30 years, that's, you do see
Yeah.
those fluctuations. You've got a good amount over your base because of Falcon Point, and you're not, maxed out on
Yeah.
debt service and things like that. But, I mean, I'll give you an example from another city, another community where it was office. And so they issued debt to, I mean, they still had a good coverage ratio, but they issued debt, but they also had subordinate development agreements. And office market went down for like 5 years, like you were saying, and so they were becoming very close to, they could not make all their subordinate payments, but they could make the debt service payments. So you're not in a situation like that, but that is an example to your point that you do, when you have a 30-year zone or something like that, there are fluctuations.
yeah, just
Yeah,
when you see
which is really typically not
Yeah.
a big deal unless you.
when you see a 50% increase, and because COVID has done any number of things and everything is an outlier, it seems, so you're worried about the numbers at least connecting all the way through whatever's going to happen now, is that you don't see a 30% retracement
Yeah.
in that, and that you're keeping your, at least
You
some,
want it to be overall.
yeah,
I think you-
so that's,
Yes.
but no one has yet done a projection where they think that's going, or?
So you can do that, but I mean, you're.
Oh, I'm not
your
gonna do it.
overall- No, like, I mean, listen, you can do that, but your overall, you are growing. It's not
Right.
that you've
Okay.
got, you'll always see some dips,
There's
is
two-
my point. And
And
the
I
only
think-
time it's really an issue is if somebody had just maxed out, you've not maxed out.
Right, yeah, we
Because
haven't.
You're only doing
Yeah.
projects, even on reimbursement, you're able to do, you've not pledged yourself. over.
Yeah.
There's actually two factors here. One is the change in the value, the taxable value of what's in the Tirz district, right? So if you take a snapshot of everything that's in the district at this point in time, its value could decrease next year. Now, that's where you have to have enough debt service coverage ratio to accommodate that. That's one factor. The other factor is that if there's ongoing reinvestment or additional investment in the Tirz districts, your tax base is growing from that, so the two could offset each other. Or they could,
Absolutely.
they could complement each
That's
other.
why you see the
Yeah.
average growth. too.
Right.
Yeah.
So as long as, each time you make a commitment, you're making allowances for potential decreases in value.
And
That's
it's
it.
decreasing growth, not necessarily that there's no revenue coming.
Right.
So that, there's a difference there too.
Yeah.
You've got your revenues.
But we're paying you to keep us on track there.
Well, in
That's the hope.
And
In our
you're
case-
doing a good job.
In our case too, I think the mix matters. So we've got residential, so you're
Right.
gonna have less volatility in residential, but if it was
That's true.
all commercial,
Yeah.
you would see pretty significant decrease in value.
And that's where you see some of the
recently.
examples where it was all
Yeah,
office.
yeah.
I'm the new guy on the
Yeah.
panel,
Yeah,
so
very-
I'm asking a bunch of questions just to
Oh, you're
kind of get
fine.
a firm grounding in it.
You are good.
We're having fun.
One last thing is that, from my standpoint, is I saw in the schedule for the payouts and stuff, is the interest rate has some variance to it. Is that by contract or is that by some sort of,
Tracy.
Interest rate.
the interest rate on the obligations that have been issued run anywhere between 4 and 5% with a 4.2 at one point in time?
Those are set when they're priced, yeah, when they're issued.
So these are part of the contract when it was originally done?
They're part of the original issuance.
Okay, so it's not going to be repriced?
It's not that we don't do refundings, we do when it makes sense.
These are
So
fixed
when
commitments?
They become callable.
They don't show fixed in the
Oh,
in the
are they
schedule.
variable or fixed interest rate?
That's why I'm asking.
They are, I know I sent you the debt schedules, so yes, those rates.
Those numbers change, so that's why I'm asking the question.
The rates are set by coupons, it's more
Yes, so-
obligated, so,
Actually, a coupon just means it's in the contract.
they can be refunded, and our financial advisor looks at that when those
I'm just asking a very basic way. It's presently part of the contracts?
Yes.
And then whatever you do in deciding to do a recast, that's whatever happens then, somebody says, hey, I think I can get it for another point less, they'll go and do a recast and they'll slam the entire, I don't know if they're gonna do a defeasance or something like that, but in any event, I'm just trying to get a baseline understanding of what's going on there. So it looked all kind of like natural stuff to me, but these are things that don't become immediately apparent in the process of looking at it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, Tracy, but just from the bond issuances, I've done when we issued those bonds, I didn't see exactly what we were getting, but those different rates are that set.
That's it, okay, that's set in stone,
Yes.
Each issue is fixed rate.
yeah.
So they are different rates, but those.
Right, but each issue is fixed rate,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Okay, we don't
That's
have
not
variable
changing
rate,
unless-
we don't have variable rate debt, that's the
It doesn't
question.
change.
Okay.
No.
I realize each issue would have a
Yes.
different rate,
Yes.
and you blend it,
And
so
that's
it could
what- yes,
vary
that's
as
what
you're,
they
you know,
average it.
but each issue is fixed, yeah.
Yes.
And they're callable, so we have a chance to call the issue
It makes
when it's
sense.
advantageous to the city. Okay.
Yes. So what you see is
Yeah.
fixed, that's.
No, that, I'm glad you asked the question, that was good to clarify.
Yeah, it's hard to see some of it, what all the details come from, because they're not all there.
Yeah,
But,
you-
and that's
you-
fine, I'm not criticizing,
You
just,
like numbers, don't you?
I'm a numbers guy. I've done a lot of numbers. I really don't have anything else. I have a lot of details, but they really don't matter. So, okay.
That's good, all right. Well, I'm available anytime for any questions. Tracy, you're up next. Oh, no, quarterly development.
All right, we'll move to item 3C, the discussion regarding the quarterly development status.
Good evening. I don't know if I've met most of you. I'm Ashley Bailey, I'm the Planning and Development Services Director.
So in these four sub-districts, the first one we'll go over is the Falcon Point sub-district.
There aren't too many moving parts in this one right now since your last update. The main one is going to be the North Point East. It was going to be a little confusing. It's going to be number 1 and also on the west side. It just, all the yellow just made everything blur together. So that one is in for review right now. Currently, they're allowed to do some retail and then also more of an urban multifamily product. And they're looking at potentially moving away from that to do a little bit more retail. We'll see where we land on that one. But that would have to, that amendment or at least a new PED or planning and development would have to come back to planning commission and council. The other is there over on Falcon Point, just off Pflugerville Parkway. There is some medical offices that are under construction right now. That one is actually going in. And then Keystone 12 is up a little bit further. It's just south of where Temple 22 and Cura had all opened, and it's still on that same line. And that one is under development under a site plan right now. So,
Just real quick on that one, actually, before we leave that slide, North Point, I know a couple of you went through that with us when we had a Tirz amendment before. So what Ashley's referring to tonight is really just based on land use discussions, and we have not received a request for Tirz reimbursement for that tract at this time.
So they're just changing it completely?
They're making lots of amendments to
Okay.
that project.
and proposed
Good.
development. So we'll see what happens, and then we'll get into the church. But it could affect the underlying one.
So you're expecting a possibility of money needing to be available to fund that?
No, right now it's just the land use, so no money's involved.
Okay,
It's just that they could change their development pattern, which then could lead into Tirz fees, but at this point, nothing would be.
okay, so nothing's been submitted, nothing's been approved, nothing's been,
No
chewed on.
construction plans, we are well before that.
okay.
Okay, so for this State Highway 45 district, this one, we do still have lifestyle communities. We have a few final plots that are still coming on that. You'll see the number 1 there in the yellow. That one was just approved. The Longhorn addition is number 2, so it's further off to the west. That one has about 560,000 square feet of storage facility right now. You've got the Timmerman West tract. We've had a few people kicking tires, but there's really nothing on that one right now. The deck will be had. The preliminary plat that was approved, Timmerman East, also preliminary plat. Chisholm Station has a preliminary plat. They are currently talking to staff on trying to figure out where they are with a little holdout piece on the frontage. And so number 6 is actually for offices. And so we're still in discussions with them, but none of those have come in for any construction.
projects yet. Number 7 is over on the far right or the east side. And that one, they do have a site plan on that one, but it's a little minor commercial facility. Number 8, also just under number 7 on that one, they have plans approved, but no construction has started. Skybox Phase 2 is number 9, just south of number 2. That one, Skybox Phase 2 is going to be closing in on completion soon. So Skybox Phase 1 is already up and completed. Skybox Phase 2, I would say probably next 3 months might be done. But none of those have requested anything for Tirz. It's just nice value to add to that base. Next slide, please. We just have a few more pictures in there for you. So the Longhorn Business Park, that's just that storage facility. And you can see the Skybox Phase 2 and then the Longhorn. Okay, so the Pecan District, Tirz Sub-District, there has been nothing on this one. So we can just give over that when we have no activity on this one at this time. All right, and then downtown Pecan Quarter District, this one is the fun one. This is where you see City Hall going in, you see the structured parking going in, and the Monarch. There is work being done. You'll also see a lot going on right now with that parking lot that's just directly adjacent. There's been a lot of land moving, so if you haven't gone over there, it looks amazing. And then number 6, so everything pretty much is in that little corridor. Number 5 is that parking lot that's just a little bit outside of the City Hall area. And then number 6 is Soapy Falls. It's off of Oxford, but that one is construction started, but we're expecting probably they will be done in the next 6 months. But number 6 is not having the Tirz. I think it's mostly just the city side that's had the Tirz. So 1 through 5 is looking good.
Where is that 5 parking lot?
Just trying to
By
west of the
Lincoln.
Methodist Church.
Is that what,
It's
does
the
it,
old gin tract. Yeah.
oh, that's what's in my ear every day. Okay. All right.
The new parking for First United that we
Got
saw
it.
open for the Main Street extension.
Yeah.
And it's been going really fast. I drive by.
I hear it every day, all day. My building is right there, all day.
Literally outside your door.
It's outside my window.
So if you just peek out, you'll see it moving.
Makes my car white. Yes.
Is Skybox a data center?
Skybox is a data center.
Okay.
Yes. There's one of 2. Skybox has 2, so building 2 is the second one, obviously. But
And there's a third data center somewhere.
there is a third data center over off of 130. It's a smaller.
What's Soapy Falls?
So
It's a car wash.
Oh,
Right.
duh.
I heard about that.
That looks so amazing.
there's been so much progress. That I was really excited to see that we actually got new phones.
We'll have an update for you on this project at Tirz.
All right, ready to move? Move to item 3D, discuss and consider action regarding financial reports and approval of expenditures.
So I don't have an updated financial report for fiscal '26 because we're just now getting our reallocation of our Tirz revenue. Like, I don't even have it. I should get it probably this week. They only give us the allocation once a year, and so that's when we know exactly how much revenue we brought in for the Tirz.
Can
I
I
will-
interrupt quick? Who's they?
The tax collector,
Okay.
assessor,
Is
Travis
that
County.
this? Oh, Travis County.
They actually provide that allocation to us. As the revenues are coming in, they're not split. They're just property tax. And so we break it between general fund and debt service fund. It's in the report that they send us where we can actually peel out what actually belongs to the Tirz. So we'll be able to do that in April. I do want to say we ended, this is the annual report that's required from the comptroller. We ended the district at almost 7.5 million. We have, the board did approve the $8 million for the parking structure in downtown East. And so to date, we've had 4.8 million expenditures on that $8 million approval. And so that will be part of the report once I get the revenue for the Tirz. But that's really the only expenditures that have been approved for the district at this point.
So the difference we're still expecting to have to pay? Between the 4.8 and the 8 million?
Right. The
Okay.
difference is still going to be coming in this year.
And do we have cash on hand for that, or is that gonna be a bond issue?
No, we have cash on.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I saw 7 million in cash, so,
Right, except that we now have an additional 5 million in revenue this year.
okay,
And
Perfect.
the only thing we have is the debt schedule, the debt
Okay.
service.
okay.
And everything else is pretty minor, from the administrative fees and service payments.
Okay.
So,
There's a ramping of what happens with payments that I saw over time, gets up to, I think the high is 4.1. I take it somebody must have gone through that and figured out that there's not going to be anything running up against that number.
we have a forecast that looks out, yes.
Okay. It's good to hear. I think that's my biggest issue. Okay.
And I was going to piggyback on what y'all were talking about earlier. We have seen new value in some of the sub-districts over the last several years. So it is increasing because of value, but it's also increasing because of new value in some of the districts based on some of the development that Ashley was talking about.
Yeah, the only thing that struck me, you start worrying when you see outliers. So when you see a 30% 1 year over year increase in value, that's not a norm you see in real estate, whether it's residential or commercial. That's just, especially in a place like Pflugerville, you're not going to see it. Manhattan, maybe you would see things like that, but it's a whole different thing, and that's based on NOI issues, not on the typical stuff we'd see here. So when I saw that number, I'm going, ooh,
Yeah, I can pull out like what was new value, not just growth in assessments.
okay, I just,
So,
I'm asking basic questions, just kind of getting my feet wet in the middle of this, and I'm not trying to be difficult about it.
Is that information easy to provide?
yes.
It could be interesting to look, for the board to see
Yeah, I have it
what
broken
happened
down
in terms
on
of what was new added value and what was the change in value from the previous year,
Right.
which
I'll bring
that would
that-
answer the question.
I'll
Yeah.
bring that at our next meeting.
Because you have a nice
Because I'll
graph,
have it for this year, so I'll have the,
Yeah.
you have a nice graph that shows the base, and then
The
the
growth.
triangle being the growth, seeing how we fit into the system makes everybody just feel good. I like feeling good.
So how large does the Tirz have to get before we can fund the entire city structure with just the Tirz revenue? It's a facetious question.
Yeah.
A couple 100,000 isn't getting this close, is it?
No.
that's all.
All right. Do we need a motion to approve?
Is this information or do you need
This is-
approval?
Well, it says consider action.
Yeah, I don't know if
To
there's
accept, do you
any.
need them to accept it?
That's what you did last time.
I'll make a motion to accept the reports
Okay.
as presented.
Let's
if
do
that's- you get a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. I think though we are down to item number 4, ready to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
You just do that. Yep.
There we go.
Thank you all.